They erased me from the family like I was nothing. No goodbye. No phone call. Just silence. For 12 years, I vanished, not by choice, but by force. And then, one ordinary morning, they showed up at my mansion gates like they still had a place in my story. But this time, I had the pen. Alright, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. 12 years ago, they wiped me from their lives. Today, a shiny new gate opens, and it's them on the other side. The sun dipped behind the mansion's grand columns, casting long shadows across the marble driveway. Ava stood barefoot on the cold floors of her glass-walled foyer, one hand resting on the edge of the velvet curtain. From this angle, the gate camera gave her a perfect view of the people she'd spent 12 years trying to forget. Her fingers tightened on the curtain. There they were. Her mother. Her father. Her brother. The trio that once turned their backs on her without flinching. Now they stood at the foot of her empire, dressed neatly, nervously shifting weight, as if trying to summon the right to be here. They looked smaller than she remembered. 12 years had passed, but Ava could still hear the final words her mother hissed before slamming the door in her face. You've made your choice. Don't come back. She hadn't. Not once. Not for birthdays. Not for funerals. She hadn't even called. Her chest tightened. Back then, she had nothing, just a duffel bag, a borrowed coat, and a heart that felt like it had shattered beyond repair. She'd slept on floors. Waited tables until her feet bled. Built herself up brick by painful brick. And now, they were here. Her father reached up to press the intercom. Her heart began to race. The screen blinked. His voice came through. Ava, sweetheart, it's us. Sweetheart. It almost made her laugh. The audacity of it. After 12 years of silence, exile, rejection, he was calling her sweetheart? She swallowed the lump rising in her throat. They looked older. Worn. But not sorry. There was no desperation in their eyes, just entitlement, like they were sure she'd open the gate out of habit. Out of blood. Her brother paced behind them, fidgeting. The same one who'd told her she was an embarrassment to the family, that her decisions would ruin their name. Ava stepped back from the curtain and took a deep breath. She was no longer the girl they threw away. She was Ava Castillo, the woman who'd built a real estate empire from scratch. The woman who owned the house they were now begging to enter. But inside, the old wounds throbbed. Was this a trap? A joke? Or worse, did part of her still crave their approval? The intercom buzzed again. Another voice, her mother's this time. Shaky. We'd just like to talk. Ava closed her eyes. Images flooded her, cold nights in the basement she rented in Queens, the first sale she made, the first apartment deed with her name on it. The nights she cried into the arms of strangers just to remember what warmth felt like. And now they had the nerve to show up? No call. No letter. Just a smile at the gate and a rehearsed tone of concern. She turned toward the speaker on the wall. Her hand hovered over the button. Her chest rose and fell, slow and heavy. What did they want? Why now? Why her? And would she let them in? Every memory of that day, the slamming door, the silence, the sting, hit me like a tide I'd spent 12 years holding back. There was a pause after she spoke, long enough to hear the wind rustle through the trees lining the driveway. Then came her mother's voice, gentler now, touched by something that almost sounded like humility. We just want to talk. Ava stared at the screen. Talk. As if it hadn't taken her years to teach herself not to crave that very thing. Her eyes locked on the face of her father, stoic as always. He looked like a man trying to remember how to be vulnerable, but his expression betrayed nothing. Just a flicker of discomfort. Maybe even guilt. Or maybe that was her imagination, painting him human again. Ava pressed the second button, buzzing them in. The gate creaked open. The footsteps on the marble echoed louder than expected. Ava remained still as the doorbell rang, her heart rattling inside her ribcage. She walked slowly, deliberately, her heels tapping against the floor. Each step she took toward the front door felt like walking into a fire she once barely survived. Her hand touched the doorknob. And suddenly, she was 19 again, soaked in rain, standing on her parents' porch. Shivering. Pleading. Her bags at her feet. Her voice raw from crying. "I have nowhere else to go," she had whispered. Her father's jaw tightened. Her mother's arms were crossed. Her brother wouldn't even meet her eyes. "You've made your choices," her mother had snapped. "You chose him over this family. You disrespected our name. You brought shame. Don't act like we owe you anything." That was the moment something inside her fractured. The door had closed, quietly, deliberately. No screaming. No final embrace. Just rejection that bled without noise. Ava blinked and came back to the present. She opened the door slowly. They stood there, older, grayer, but unmistakably the same people who had once looked through her as if she were invisible. No one spoke at first. Then her mother whispered, "Ava." It was almost a sigh. Ava didn't respond. She simply turned and walked back inside, letting the door hang open. If they wanted to come in, they'd have to walk through the threshold on their own. They followed, awkward, uncertain, their shoes making careful contact with floors far too polished for comfort. The silence was unbearable. She led them into the sunken living room, where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked acres of forest. A quiet fire flickered in the corner. Ava remained standing, arms crossed. Her mother sat, slowly, as if unsure whether she had the right. Her father stayed standing. Her brother leaned against the back of a chair. "So," her brother began, voice dry. "Nice place." Ava smiled, sharp as glass. "Thanks. Bought it cash. Unlike the car I was sleeping in when you last knew me." No one responded. Her father cleared his throat. "We didn't come here to fight. We came because it's been long enough." "Has it?" Ava asked. "Because for me, long enough was that night you let me sleep outside." Her mother's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "We made a mistake. We know that now." Ava stepped forward, voice trembling with cold composure. "I needed you then. Not now. Now I have lawyers, land, power. Back then, I had nothing. You left me with nothing." "We were hurt too," her father said, voice firm. "You have to understand." Ava raised a hand, silencing him. "No. I don't have to understand anything. You made your choice. And now you're standing in a house I built with the pain you handed me like a gift." Her brother, silent until now, spoke, voice tight with something darker. "We're not here for what you think. We didn't come just to say sorry." They smiled like nothing happened. But their eyes couldn't lie, and mine couldn't forget. Ava felt the air in the room shift, thickening. "We didn't come just to say sorry," her brother repeated, his words landing with more weight than she expected. Ava tilted her head slightly, her gaze locked on his. "Then what did you come for?" A long silence. Her mother fiddled with the hem of her blouse. Her father's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. It was always like this, her mother cracking under pressure, her father turning to stone, her brother playing diplomat when it suited him. "We came," her mother said finally, "because we've been watching you succeed. And, well, because it's time." "Time for what?" Ava asked. "Rewriting history?" "No," her father said, his voice sharp. "To fix what we broke." Ava raised an eyebrow. "Fix? With what? Hugs and half apologies?" Her brother stepped forward, palms up. "Look, Ava. I know what we did can't be undone. But, people change. Circumstances change. Families fall apart and come back together. It happens." Ava's smile was small and tight. "Families fall apart. But you didn't fall. You pushed." Her brother exhaled. "We were wrong. Especially me. I was cruel. I believed things that weren't mine to judge." For a second Ava saw the boy he used to be, the brother who helped her cheat on math tests, who defended her when their father's temper flared, who brought her candy after she scraped her knee. But then he blinked, and the memory faded. She crossed her arms. "You believed I was trash for loving someone you disapproved of. You thought you were protecting the family name. And when I left, you let it happen. You all did." Her mother's voice cracked. "You have no idea how many nights I cried." "No," Ava shot back, her voice rising. "Because I do know how many nights I cried. I counted them. In shelters. In basements. With strangers. Every single one without you." A beat. No one spoke. Ava looked each of them in the eye. "Let's stop pretending you came here for healing. You could have done that with a phone call. You came here for something else." Her father finally spoke. "We heard a rumor." Ava felt her stomach twist. "What kind of rumor?" she asked cautiously. "That you might be receiving an inheritance," her father said slowly. "From Victor." Ava stiffened. Victor. The only person in her life who'd loved her unconditionally after the family disowned her. Her old mentor. The man who'd believed in her potential when no one else did. He'd recently passed. Quietly. His will wasn't public yet. "You've been watching me?" Ava asked, her voice low. "We weren't spying," her brother said quickly. "But we heard through people in the industry. That he left you something, maybe something significant. And we thought that maybe I'd share it?" Ava said. Silence. Her chest burned. 12 years of silence. And the first words out of their mouths once they stepped into her life again were, "Money." Of course. She almost laughed. But it wasn't funny. They hadn't come for healing. They'd come to see how much she was worth now. Not just emotionally. But literally. This mansion, these walls, every inch is built from the ashes of what they burned. They took everything. So I built something no one could take. Ava stood at the window, her family's voices fading behind her as they sat in the living room. She needed a breath. Not air, space. Distance. Her hand touched the glass. Beyond the manicured lawns and the private woods, the sky was starting to dim. She'd dreamed of this mansion long before she ever saw it, when she was 22 and broke, eating ramen in a dark studio apartment in Brooklyn, trying to figure out how to sell cheap apartments to wealthier people without sounding desperate. It had taken time. More than a decade. And it hadn't been pretty. Flashback, year 1. She was 19. Alone. With $143 to her name and a cracked phone. She'd slept in her car for 4 nights, then lied her way into a waitressing job. Her first paycheck had gone to rent for a closet-sized room in a shared apartment where the walls were thin and the air always smelled like fried onions. She cried herself to sleep most nights. But she never called home. Pride wasn't the reason. Pain was. The kind of pain that told you even if they picked up, they wouldn't want you. Year 3. She found Victor by accident, an elderly real estate broker she met while delivering food to his office. He noticed her sharp memory, her ability to connect. He offered her an internship. Unpaid, at first. She took it anyway. She learned fast. How to read buyers. How to find flaws in contracts. How to smell a good deal before anyone else could. Victor became her mentor. Her friend. Her only family. Year 6. She made her first sale, $18,000 commission. She cried in a locked bathroom stall and told no one. She used that money to get licensed, then flipped a condemned brownstone with Victor's backing. By year 7, she'd doubled it. Year 8, she opened her own firm. She became the girl who came from nowhere and started showing up at city auctions with silent confidence and sharp suits. Present day. Ava turned from the window. Her fingers grazed the oak banister as she walked upstairs. She moved through the hallways like a queen in her palace, but tonight it felt hollow. Haunted. She opened a door. Inside, untouched, was her memory room. No one else knew about it. Photos, letters, framed deeds, a faded name tag from the diner where she worked at 20. A voicemail from Victor saved on an old burner phone. You don't need their approval, Ava. They left you, but I see you. You're gonna build something bigger than any of them can dream. She sat in the velvet chair near the window and pressed her palms together. Victor was gone now. And her real family, the one who tossed her aside, were sitting downstairs like guests in a hotel they couldn't afford. Did she want revenge? Or did she want closure? She didn't even know the difference anymore. There was a photo on the wall, Victor and her, laughing at a rooftop party the year she turned 25. It had been her first real birthday party in 6 years. He had called her the diamond they threw away. Ava looked at her reflection in the window. She didn't see a diamond anymore. She saw a fortress. And somewhere inside, a crack was forming. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A voice message followed. We know about the inheritance. But there's something Victor never told you, something that changes everything. Ava replayed the voicemail 3 times. Each time, her stomach clenched tighter. The voice was male. Unfamiliar. Calm, but with an undercurrent of something darker. Control? Threat? Maybe just truth. There's something Victor never told you. Something that changes everything. She saved the message but didn't reply. Downstairs, the soft hum of voices continued. She could hear her brother pacing. Her mother murmuring. Her father pouring another glass of something from the bar. It was time to go back down. She made them wait 10 more minutes. Then, slowly, descended the stairs. Their eyes turned toward her like sunflowers to the light. Except this wasn't light. It was judgment. Caution. Calculation. She didn't sit. Her father cleared his throat. I know this is difficult. Ava's lips tightened. Do you? We didn't come to beg, her mother said softly. We came because we've carried this for too long. You deserve to hear what we couldn't say back then. Ava raised an eyebrow. Now that I have power. Now that Victor left me everything? They didn't deny it. We were wrong, her brother said. But we weren't just cruel. We were scared. Scared of what? Ava asked. Her brother hesitated. Of what your choices would do to our name. Of how far you'd fall. You were dating someone, unstable. He was older. He had a record. You were just a kid. Ava's jaw clenched. That was true. The relationship that triggered her exile had been messy, painful. But she hadn't deserved abandonment. You didn't try to help me, she said. You just shut me out. We thought you'd come back when it fell apart, her father admitted. But you didn't. You disappeared. Ava's voice dropped. Because I had to. I didn't want to come back crawling. No one argued. For a moment, there was a fragile silence, like a bridge hanging by a single thread. Her mother finally whispered, "We missed you, Ava. Not just because you're successful. Because you're ours." Ava's eyes stung, but she didn't blink. They wanted something. She could feel it in her bones. This wasn't just remorse. It was strategic. Practiced. You knew Victor left me something, Ava said. That's why you're here. We heard rumors, her father said, not denying it. But we didn't know for sure until we saw the news about the Memorial Trust. Which I created, Ava said flatly. Her brother exhaled, frustrated. Can you just believe, for 1 second, that maybe we also came because we miss our sister? Ava turned to him sharply. You were the first one to say I deserved to be cut off. He looked down. And I was wrong. She studied them. Each face. Every angle of discomfort and regret. They were performing grief, but how much of it was real? Her phone buzzed again. She checked it. Same unknown number. Another message. But this one only said. You let them in. They're not the only ones coming. Her pulse spiked. She looked at her family. Do you know someone named Elias? Her father's face went white. Her mother whispered, How do you know that name? Victor's will hasn't been read yet, Ava said. But apparently, it's not as simple as you think. They all exchanged a look, one of shared panic. Her brother stepped toward her, voice low and urgent. Ava, if Elias is involved, you're in danger. Trust is a house made of glass. And tonight, I heard it crack. Ava's mind raced, but her face remained still. She didn't blink as she asked again, Who is Elias? Her father rubbed his forehead. Her brother turned away. But it was her mother who finally whispered the truth. He was Victor's cleaner. Fixer. Silent partner. Call it whatever you want. He made problems go away. Ava narrowed her eyes. Criminal problems? Her father nodded. Victor was brilliant. But he had enemies. Competitors. People who didn't like how fast he rose. Elias kept them in check. Ava felt her throat dry out. Victor, the man who raised her from the ashes, had a shadow she never saw? She turned away, her thoughts spiraling. This changed everything. Every warm memory of Victor suddenly pulsed with tension. How much of her success had come from real grit, and how much from deals made in back rooms she never knew existed? He never told me, she said quietly. Her brother looked pained. He kept things from all of us. Elias was dangerous. Still is. Her mother added, if he's reaching out now, it's not about the will. It's about control. Ava's chest tightened. Control. The word echoed inside her like a bell in an empty church. Later that night, after her family had retired to the guest wing under her icy supervision, Ava sat in her home office, a clean, glass-walled room overlooking the lake. She played the message from Elias again. You let them in. They're not the only ones coming. His voice was like velvet stretched over a blade. She ran a reverse lookup through a discreet service Victor once showed her, buried deep in her saved bookmarks. The name came back encrypted. Of course. She called her lawyer. Private line. Run a name for me, she said. Elias. Tied to Victor Sterling's estate. Use discretion. There was a pause. Then, understood. She hung up and stared at her reflection in the dark window. Memories surfaced. Victor once told her, sometimes, in business, the things that stay buried are what keep the building standing. At the time, she thought he meant emotional baggage. Now, she wasn't so sure. She opened the safe behind the painting on her office wall. Inside, documents, USB drives, personal letters. One flash drive was marked if needed. Her hand trembled slightly as she inserted it into her laptop. A single folder opened. Password protected. She paused. Then typed, Castillo 17, her name and the year she met Victor. It opened. A spreadsheet. Contacts. Transfers. Surveillance logs. And one photo. Her family. Taken 2 weeks ago, standing outside her former office building, looking up at the tower she once owned before she sold it. She felt a chill go down her spine. Someone had been watching her family. Before they even reached out. This wasn't about forgiveness. This was about leverage. She opened another file. Elias_notice.pdf. One sentence glared back at her. You are not the sole heir. And you were never meant to be. She heard a creak behind her. Turned. Her mother stood at the door, pale. Ava, there's more you don't know. And if you don't listen, Elias won't be your worst problem. Ava didn't move. The room was still, her pulse anything but. Her mother stood just inside the office doorway, hair slightly tousled, night robe tied too tightly, as if she were bracing for war. What do you mean, Elias won't be my worst problem? Ava asked. Her mother glanced around nervously, as if the walls had ears. Maybe they did. You need to understand, she said, stepping closer, Victor's empire wasn't as clean as it looked. Some of the people he partnered with, they're not business people. They're ghosts. Ava stayed silent, absorbing the weight of the words. He left me everything, she said. If there's danger, it's mine to face. Her mother shook her head. No, sweetheart. You were never supposed to inherit. Victor changed his will months before he died. Ava's heart dropped. What are you talking about? You were the second heir, not the first, her mother said quietly. There was someone else. A silent name in the original will. Elias represented them. That's why he's reaching out. Ava leaned against the desk, jaw tightening. Who? She asked. Her mother didn't answer immediately. That told Ava everything she needed to know. You knew, Ava whispered. You came here not to reconnect, but to get ahead of whatever's coming. Her mother looked away. You were always so smart, she said softly. We knew the will was going to be messy. We thought if we came first, if we came as family, you might trust us. You might protect us. Ava took a sharp step forward. So your regret, your apology, none of it was real? No, her mother said quickly, eyes glossy. It was. But it wasn't only that. Ava stared at her. And then, something broke in her mother. She sank into the leather chair across from the desk and buried her face in her hands. You think we disowned you out of pride. But it wasn't just that. We were afraid. Elias warned us not to interfere with you after you left. He said Victor had claimed you. That we needed to let you go. Or he'd let us go. The words hit like a punch to the gut. Let you go. Victor had protected her from more than just poverty. He'd shielded her from something bigger, darker. Elias threatened you? Ava asked. Her mother nodded. Not directly. But we understood. Then why come now? Because the person Elias was representing, he's not dead. He's coming back for what he believes is his. Ava's phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. This time, just a name. Gideon. She stared at the word. It meant nothing. And everything. She opened the safe again. Scanned more documents. Her mother watched quietly as Ava found another folder, this one labeled, Gideon Barcelona/2013. She clicked. Inside, old photos, financial transfers, and a contract signed by Victor and an unknown cosigner, Gideon Hale. The name flickered something deep in her memory. Her mother murmured, Victor's partner. Silent. Ruthless. Disappeared after the Barcelona deal went bad. Why haven't I heard of him until now? Ava asked. Her mother looked at her with eyes full of both fear and regret. Because Victor made sure you wouldn't. He erased him from your world. But now. Gideon's back. Ava's phone lit up again, this time, a call. Blocked number. She answered. The voice on the other end was cold. Familiar. You're living in my house, Ava. We should talk. The line was quiet for 2 seconds too long. Then Gideon spoke again. You're living in my house, Ava. We should talk. Before things escalate. Ava's grip tightened around the phone. Her voice was steady. Victor gave this house to me. He gave everything to me. Gideon chuckled softly, a sound more cruel than amused. Victor gave you an illusion. I built the foundation. The contracts. The silent shares. You inherited smoke. But I own the fire. Then the line went dead. She stared at the screen. Blocked. No call history. No trace. She called her lawyer back. Find everything you can on Gideon Hale. Silent partnerships. Past litigation. Especially anything tied to Victor or this property. He responded, already on it. But Ava. I just got pinged with a private arbitration claim filed against you in Madrid. From a company that traces back to Gideon. Ava froze. Madrid. Barcelona. 2013. It was starting. She turned to her mother, who hadn't moved from the chair. Did you know about this arbitration? Her mother hesitated. We heard rumors. We didn't think he'd go through with it. Ava narrowed her eyes. He threatened you 12 years ago. And now you're telling me you didn't think he'd go through with it? Her mother looked ashamed. But Ava's attention shifted. Someone was standing at the top of the stairs. Her brother. He hadn't said a word since dinner. But now he was watching. Listening. She stepped out into the hallway. Something you want to share, Caleb? He raised both hands. I was just checking on Mom. Were you? Don't start, he said, tone defensive. You don't trust anyone. That's why you're alone in this place, buried in secrets. Ava felt something inside her crack. I'm alone because you made sure I would be. He stepped down slowly, calmly, like a man who knew exactly how much space he wanted to take up. I made mistakes. But I'm not the enemy. Ava tilted her head. Then why were you at my old office 2 weeks ago? His eyes flickered. How do you? You were photographed, she cut in. Looking up at my tower. You weren't just watching from afar. You were waiting for something. Maybe someone. He didn't answer. Her mind raced. What if Caleb had been in contact with Gideon? What if he struck a deal? She walked past him, heading toward the library, a room Victor once used for high-level meetings. Inside, everything was untouched. She scanned the bookshelf until she found the ledger Victor had always kept locked away. Pressed a hidden button beneath the globe, and a shelf slid open with a soft click. Inside, a smaller safe. She opened it. Inside, a burner phone, a key card, and a black envelope marked "in case he returns." She tore it open. Inside was a single handwritten note. Gideon Hale has no loyalty. Only leverage. If you're reading this, he's coming for everything. Don't trust anyone, not even those who share your blood. Her stomach turned. The whole house suddenly felt off. Quiet in the wrong ways. Too many shadows. Too many possibilities. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Not urgent. Measured. Her brother leaned in through the doorway. I don't know what you're looking for, he said. But if Gideon's back, it's not just your future at stake. It's all of ours. She studied his face. He looked sincere. But sincerity was a mirror too, reflective, not revealing. Ava's lawyer called back. Ava. I found something. Gideon Hale isn't just filing claims. He's been in the country for 2 weeks. And he already bought property right across the lake from your estate. Ava didn't sleep. She stood by her balcony all night, watching the reflection of moonlight on the lake. On the far side, barely visible through the trees, a new estate was being renovated. Fresh exterior lights. Motion detectors. A construction team moving with discretion. Gideon Hale didn't waste time. He wasn't playing chess. He was playing war. At sunrise, Ava made coffee in the silent kitchen. Her hands moved mechanically, water, filter, grind, but her mind was already dissecting every memory, every meeting, every offhand comment from Victor. Was Gideon always in the shadows? Was she ever really safe? The front page of that secret folder haunted her. Don't trust anyone, not even those who share your blood. Her gaze flicked to the hallway. She needed answers. She found Caleb in the solarium. He was sipping tea, scrolling his phone. When she entered, he glanced up but said nothing. She got straight to it. How long have you known Gideon was back? Caleb sighed, but didn't flinch. 2 weeks. And you didn't tell me. You would have shut down. Gone cold. That's what you do. Because I've had to, Ava snapped. Because the last time I trusted family, I ended up homeless. Caleb stood, the mask of calm slipping. And do you think that didn't haunt me every night? I watched our parents throw you out like garbage. I hated it. But I was 20. I was scared. I thought you'd come back and ask for help. But you disappeared. Ava felt something shift, pain, empathy, maybe even guilt, but she didn't show it. I built a life. Without you. And now that life's under attack, Caleb said quietly. Not from us. From someone who thinks you stole what was his. She looked at him carefully. Have you spoken to him? Caleb hesitated. Just long enough. I've received messages, he admitted. Anonymous. Hints. Family will be tested. Blood will be weighed. Stuff like that. And you said nothing? I didn't know if they were real or manipulative, he said. But I started digging into Gideon myself. And Ava, he took a breath. He wasn't just Victor's partner. He was his fixer. His enforcer. But more than that, he was supposed to take over if Victor died. Ava's chest tightened. But Victor changed the will. Exactly, Caleb said. And Gideon took that as betrayal. Ava felt the world spin. She remembered Victor growing frilier that last year. The guarded calls. The urgency in finalizing his trust. The panic in his eyes he never explained. Now it made sense. Victor had feared Gideon would retaliate. And still chose her. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just a single image. A picture of her office. The front glass smashed. Red spray paint across the wall, thief. She sat down slowly, breath ragged. I'm not safe, she whispered. No, Caleb said. You're not. Then he added something that hit harder than any warning. And Ava, neither are we. Ava stared at the photo. Her name, once printed in silver above her luxury office suite, was now buried under jagged, red letters, thief. The message wasn't just graffiti. It was a declaration. Gideon wasn't hiding anymore. He wanted her shaken. Humiliated. Unraveled. Back in her office, she called her lawyer, her voice stone cold. File an emergency injunction against any claim tied to Gideon Hale. And get me everything, I want every signature Victor ever made. Cross-reference them. Look for coercion, backdating, pressure. Anything we can use. Yes, Ms. Castillo. But. Ava, this is going to war. She hung up without answering. Because it already was. She called in her fixer next. A woman named Mariah, a quiet ghost from Ava's early years, who now ran a security firm out of Boston. She owed Ava a favor. Within an hour, Mariah's people were sweeping the mansion for bugs, tapping into Gideon's recently purchased property records, and installing motion surveillance across the lake. Someone's watching you, Mariah said. The power grid on Gideon's estate spikes between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m. That's not normal activity. That's data transfer. Possibly recording. Ava's fingers curled around her coffee mug. He wants me paranoid, she muttered. He wants you paralyzed, Mariah corrected. And the longer you stay passive, the more control he takes. That night, Ava lit a fire in the fireplace and stared into it, barefoot, glass of whiskey in hand. Her mind replayed everything. Her family. Victor. Gideon. The betrayal. The warnings. And something else. Victor's words, months before his death, when you finally face the wolves, don't bark. Bite. So she did. At midnight, Ava got into her car alone and drove across the lake. She didn't alert her family. She didn't call Mariah. She needed to look into Gideon's eyes herself. She needed to see the man Victor once feared, and prove to herself she wasn't afraid. The gates to his estate were open. Too open. Her headlights swept across a freshly paved drive, past a glass guest house, and onto a sprawling modern structure that mirrored her own, like a twisted reflection. She stepped out. Silence. Then, a motion light clicked on. And Gideon appeared. Casual suit. No jacket. Whiskey in hand. As if he'd been expecting her. Ava Castillo, he said, smiling without warmth. Bold. Or stupid? She kept walking, her boots clicking on the stone. You've made your point, she said. But you're not getting anything from me. He sipped. Oh, I think I already have. Your fear. Your silence. Your attention. You don't scare me. He laughed. Good. Because I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to undo you. Everything you built on Victor's back. I'm taking it. Victor chose me. Victor owed me. He stepped closer. He used you to spit in my face. And now, I'll use you to bury his memory. Ava's jaw clenched. You want war? I want balance. And if I don't give it? Then I'll take it from someone else. Her blood ran cold. What does that mean? Gideon smiled, wolf-like. You think you're the only one who's vulnerable? He leaned in and whispered, your brother made a deal with me. But he broke it. Ava didn't remember driving back. The road was a blur. Her thoughts were louder than the engine, heavier than the fog rising from the lake. Caleb made a deal. That was what Gideon said. And then he broke it. What kind of deal? What did Gideon mean by use you to bury Victor's memory? She stormed into the house. No guards. No hesitation. Straight up the stairs to Caleb's guest suite. She didn't knock. He was still awake, pacing. When she entered, his eyes told her everything. He knew this moment was coming. How long were you working with him? She asked. He didn't try to lie. 4 months, he said. Ava's chest squeezed. Why? Because I thought I could protect you. I thought if I knew what Gideon was planning, if I stayed close, I could stop it before it reached you. By spying? She snapped. By feeding him information about me? I never gave him anything real, Caleb said. Nothing that could hurt you. He asked questions, sure, about your holdings, Victor's health, the estate. I gave him scraps. But I thought it would buy us time. Ava's voice dropped. You made a deal with a man who once threatened our entire family. And you didn't tell me. Because you would have shut me out again, he said. Just like you did 12 years ago. Her fists clenched. You shut me out. You all did. Caleb hesitated. Then, finally, he said the words she'd been chasing for over a decade. No. We didn't disown you because of the guy you were dating. Or the argument. Or the name. Ava froze. What are you talking about? He swallowed hard. We disowned you because Dad was threatened. Not just by Gideon, by you. What? You don't remember, but just before you left, Victor told Dad he was preparing a succession plan. Said you were the only one he trusted. That he was cutting Dad out. Ava's breath caught. That's why he turned on me? Yes, Caleb said quietly. Victor told him you were his heir. Not just emotionally. Legally. You were going to take the business he once tried to get into. And Dad snapped. Mom followed. I was too scared to fight it. Ava stumbled backward. 12 years of pain. 12 years thinking it was about her mistakes. Her relationships. Her shame. But all along, it was envy. Power. Her father had cut her off to protect his own ego. I didn't leave, she whispered. I was pushed out, because I was better. Caleb didn't argue. Silence fell. Until Ava asked, why did you break the deal with Gideon? He hesitated. Then looked her in the eye. Because I saw what he was planning. What was it? Not to just sue you. Not to destroy your assets. He stepped forward. Gideon wants to rewrite the legacy. He wants to rewrite the story so that Victor never existed. So that you were a failed protégé. And he was the one who rebuilt everything after you fell. Ava stared. That's what this is about. Control of a narrative? Caleb nodded. And power, of course. Always power. Ava's phone buzzed. An email. Subject, formal hearing, executor's challenge, tomorrow 9 a.m. Attached was a copy of Victor's amended will. And a name scribbled in the margin, not in Victor's handwriting. Heir, G.H. Ava's heart sank. Victor's legacy was under legal attack. And someone had forged his final wish. The sky over Manhattan was steel gray as Ava stepped out of the black SUV, heels clicking against wet pavement. Her lawyer, Elaine, walked beside her, lips pressed tight, eyes scanning the building as though it might swallow them whole. This isn't a courtroom, Ava said. Elaine nodded. Gideon filed for private arbitration under Victor's corporate bylaws. It's legal. And it's brutal. Inside, they took the elevator to the top floor of the Sterling and Hale Tower, Victor's former empire. But now, the gold lettering outside the boardroom said something new. Hale Capital Holdings. Victor's name was gone. Erased. Her stomach twisted. Inside, the boardroom was cold and surgical. Glass walls. Sleek black chairs. Every detail curated to project dominance. At the head of the table, Gideon. Calm. Composed. Wearing a steel gray suit that matched the sky outside. Ava didn't sit. Neither did Elaine. Across the table sat a panel of 3 arbitrators, appointed by Gideon's team, but legally binding. Let's begin, said the man in the middle. Mr. Hale is contesting the legitimacy of Mr. Sterling's final amendment. Claims of coercion. Mental decline. Improper witness. Victor was sharp until the day he died, Ava said immediately. Gideon smiled. That's one opinion. He slid a folder across the table. Elaine opened it. Inside, photos. Victor, frail, slumped in a chair, assisted by a nurse. Video stills. Voice slurred. Signed documents slightly misspelled. Their manufacturing incompetency, Elaine muttered. Classic. Ava's hands balled into fists. Victor knew exactly what he was doing, she said. He knew Gideon would come for the throne. That's why he named me. Because I don't want to destroy people. I want to build something that lasts. Gideon didn't blink. Victor built an empire with me. Not you. He mentored me for 8 years, Ava snapped. He gave me this life. Gideon leaned forward. He gave you scraps of what I built. The panel requested a recess to review new evidence. As everyone exited, Gideon approached Ava by the window, speaking low. You don't get it, he said. This isn't about you. This is about legacy. History is written by survivors. And Victor didn't survive. I did. She turned to face him. You think legacy is something you take? Something you rename? She asked. Victor may be gone, but you'll never replace him. He smirked. No. But I can erase him. Ava returned to her seat alone. Elaine whispered, we're losing ground. His witnesses are all industry power players. They're shaping a narrative, that Victor was weak. That you were placed as a puppet. Ava exhaled, cold and hard. Then something shifted. She remembered Victor's final note in that envelope. He has no loyalty. Only leverage. Leverage. Suddenly, she pulled out her phone. Opened a folder. A recording. Victor's last call with Gideon, captured on a hidden mic. She tapped play. Victor, you'll never have the company, Gideon. I changed the will. Ava is the only one I trust. Gideon, then you're as naive as she is. When you die, I'll take it anyway. People believe power, not paper. The boardroom went silent. Elaine smiled. Admissible. Recorded from Victor's own line. Confirmed timestamp. Game changer. Gideon's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. You think this will stop me? He said. Ava leaned in. No. But it's the first time I've seen you bleed. The arbitrator re-entered the room. We've reviewed the new material. A final ruling will be issued by tomorrow morning. Ava nodded slowly. But as she turned to leave, her phone buzzed with one final message from a blocked number. You win this round. But one of your own won't survive the next. The sun was just beginning to rise over the lake when Ava returned home. The mansion was quiet, too quiet. Her mother's room was empty. Her father's bags were gone. Only Caleb remained, seated in the dining room, staring at an untouched cup of coffee. He looked up when she entered. They left, he said. Didn't say where. Just, gone. Ava nodded slowly. She didn't ask why. She already knew. Her family hadn't come to reconcile. They'd come to protect themselves. Now that the threat was real, and messy, they'd retreated like they always did. She poured herself coffee and sat across from her brother. He looked up. Are we going to lose everything? Ava stared into her cup. Not everything. Just the illusion. She called Mariah and had her prep the security team. Then she called her PR director, one she hadn't used in years, and gave her a simple order. We go public. All of it. The will, the audio, Gideon's offshore deals. Paint the full picture. Not just his fraud. His fear. The PR director paused. It could get ugly. I'm counting on it. By mid-afternoon, Ava stood in Victor's library, now her own war room. Stacks of files, sealed envelopes, and drives covered the table. On one side, Victor's empire, legitimate, earned, brilliant. On the other, Gideon's, shady, silent, built on blackmail and smoke. And in the center, Ava. Caught between two legacies. One by blood. One by choice. At 6 p.m. sharp, Gideon called her directly. No blocked number. Just control. You think exposing me will make you righteous? He asked. I don't need to be righteous, she said. I just need to be undeniable. Gideon laughed. You're so much like him. Arrogant. Emotional. Short-sighted. You forget, she said softly, I was taught by both of you. That evening, Ava hosted a private gathering at the mansion. Just her, Caleb, Mariah, and 2 former board members who had defected from Gideon's camp after hearing the recording. Champagne was poured. Not to celebrate, but to reclaim power. She raised her glass. To what I lost, she said. And what I finally stopped apologizing for. They drank. The moment was sharp, clean, quiet. But it didn't last. At 8:47 p.m., a car exploded outside the gates. No one was hurt. But the message was clear. This wasn't legal warfare anymore. This was personal. Mariah rushed to Ava's side. He's making moves. We need to relocate you. Ava shook her head. No. If he wants the house, he can come through the front door. I'm done running. Mariah frowned. He might. Ava met her eyes. Let him. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Ava stood alone in the grand foyer. The lights dimmed. The house creaked. Then, quietly, almost politely, the doorbell rang. The front door opened slowly. Gideon stood under the entryway light, alone, hands visible. No guards. No threats. No smug expression. Just stillness. Ava didn't move. Neither did the 2 silent security men flanking the foyer. I didn't come to fight, Gideon said quietly. I came to surrender. Ava didn't believe him. She stepped forward, chin high, the house behind her glowing with the legacy she nearly lost. I don't want your surrender, she said. I want your silence. Permanently. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You think a public takedown erases me? I have ghosts older than your empire. You also have receipts, she said, tossing a thick envelope onto the floor at his feet. Laundered contracts. Witness statements. The original will, notarized. And your voice, threatening the man who gave you everything. He didn't pick it up. He didn't need to. Then it's over, he said, stepping back into the darkness. For both of us. Ava watched him go until the night swallowed him whole. She didn't exhale until the front gate clicked shut. The next morning, the ruling arrived. The arbitration panel ruled in Ava's favor. Victor's final will stood. All legal rights, holdings, and intellectual property reverted to her. Gideon's attempts to challenge were denied. But the damage lingered. Caleb sat at the breakfast table, staring at the headline in the New York Times. Castillo retains empire, sterling legacy secured after attempted corporate coup. He slid the paper aside. I should leave, he said. Ava didn't look up. Where will you go? I don't know, he said. But I can't stay here. Not after what I did. What I didn't do. She poured coffee in silence. Then handed him a cup. I'm not ready to forgive you, she said. He nodded. I wouldn't believe it if you did. But, she added, you stayed. When the others ran. That, at least, meant something. Her mother and father had left 2 days earlier. No call. No message. Just a final vanishing act, as if erasure could cleanse guilt. She hadn't expected better. But it still stung. She walked the halls of the mansion that evening alone. Touched the frame of Victor's portrait. Listened to the echo of her own steps. This was hers. Not because she won. But because she refused to surrender. She paused at the glass wall overlooking the lake. Across the water, the lights of Gideon's estate were dark. The renovations had stopped. The silence was eerie. She'd beaten him, but not without scars. She placed a hand against the cold glass. Her phone buzzed. A private message from a hidden account. One line. The legacy stands. But the blood isn't clean. She stared at it. And for the first time in days, felt something unexpected. Not fear. Not pride. Just fatigue. The lake was still. Ava sat on the back terrace, wrapped in a shawl, a mug of tea cooling in her hands. Morning light painted the water in shades of silver and ash. She hadn't slept much. But she wasn't tired. Just finished. Not broken. Not triumphant. Just done with carrying a weight that no longer belonged to her. The message from the hidden account sat unread in her inbox. The legacy stands. But the blood isn't clean. She'd shown it to Mariah, who confirmed the IP was encrypted and bounced through 6 countries. Likely Gideon. Or someone who still worked for him. But Ava didn't respond. She didn't need to. He was gone. Whatever power he had left now lived in the shadows. And Ava had stepped out of them. Caleb came to say goodbye just after breakfast. He wore a coat that looked too heavy for the season. His bag was light. You could stay, she offered. Quiet. Honest. He shook his head. I need to go prove something. Not to you. To myself. I hope you find it. He stepped forward, then hesitated. I was a coward, he said. But I never stopped believing in you. Ava met his eyes. Then you should have said something when it mattered. He nodded, accepting the wound. She didn't hug him. But she didn't stop him either. By noon, the house was empty again. Just Ava. But for the first time, it didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. She walked the halls one last time that day, not with sorrow, but with clarity. The memory room. The office. The grand piano she never learned to play. Each space whispered a different version of her life. She didn't need to silence them anymore. She just needed to listen without apology. That evening, she opened Victor's final handwritten letter. The one she hadn't dared read until now. Inside. You were never meant to inherit a fortune. You were meant to inherit the freedom to build something better than I ever did. Don't rebuild my empire. Reimagine it. And live the kind of truth I never had the courage to. She folded the paper gently. Pressed it to her chest. Then placed it in the fireplace and watched it burn, not out of anger, but release. Ava on the balcony, overlooking the lake. The water shimmered. Peaceful. Not perfect. But hers. No enemies at the gate. No voices in the halls. No more ghosts waiting in the corners of her success. Just silence. Earned. And the promise of a life no longer haunted by who she was expected to be.